The rain-slicked streets of Manhattan glistened under the sodium glow, but I barely noticed as I stood frozen, my heart hammering. His text had come at 2 a.m. Cryptic and urgent. Meet me. Now. Our spot. I knew better than to hope, but I ran anyway, sneakers pounding pavement, chasing the ghost of a man who'd sworn I was his everything until I wasn't. I'm Ezra Klein, 28, a graphic designer scraping by in Brooklyn, with dreams bigger than my bank account. He's Julian Hart, 42, the lawyer whose name lights up billboards and headlines, a man who argues cases that shape laws and lives. We met a year ago at a charity gala I'd snuck into, hoping to network. Instead, I found him charismatic, guarded, with eyes that saw through my bravado. By the end of the night, we were tangled in a quiet corner, whispering promises we both knew were dangerous. He was married to his career, he said, but I was his exception. His secret. Our spot was a tucked-away bench in Washington Square Park, hidden by ancient oaks. I arrived, breathless, and there he was, suit impeccable despite the hour, his face a map of worry. Ezra, he said, voice low, we need to talk. My stomach twisted. Julian never needed to talk, unless something was wrong. I sat, the damp wood seeping through my jeans, and waited for the blow. It's Michael, he said, and my world tilted. Michael, his ex, the one he'd loved fiercely before their messy breakup 5 years ago. The one he never quite let go of, despite claiming I was his future. He's back in New York. He wants to reconnect. Julian's eyes didn't meet mine, and I felt the first crack in my heart. I'd known about Michael from the start, snippets Julian let slip during late-night confessions. Michael was a journalist, 38, charming and reckless, the kind of man who could make you feel like the center of the universe or a speck of dust. They'd been together for a decade, building a life until Michael's ambition tore them apart. Julian swore he was done with him, but the way his voice softened when he said Michael told me otherwise. Why now? I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. Julian sighed, running a hand through his silver-flecked hair. He's covering a case I'm working on. We ran into each other at the courthouse. He's different now. Ezra. Sober. Focused. He says he's changed. I wanted to scream that I didn't care how Michael had changed, that I was the one who'd been here, loving him through his late nights and guarded heart. But I didn't. I just sat there, the rain mixing with the tears I refused to let fall. Julian reached for my hand, but I pulled back. What does this mean for us? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. He didn't answer right away, and that silence was louder than any words. Finally, he said, I don't know. I need time to figure it out. Time. The one thing I'd given him endlessly, only to be left dangling. I stood, my chest tight. Figure it out, Julian. But don't expect me to wait forever. I walked away, the city swallowing my footsteps, my heart screaming that this was only the beginning of the end. The next week was a blur of sleepless nights and unanswered texts. I threw myself into work, designing posters for a local theater, but every color I chose felt wrong. Every line too jagged. Julian's case, a high-profile discrimination lawsuit, was all over the news. And so was Michael. His byline appeared in every major paper. His face on TV, all sharp cheekbones and confident smiles. I hated how much he looked like the kind of man Julian would love. I saw Julian once, briefly, at a coffee shop near his office. He looked exhausted, his tie loosened, eyes distant. Ezra, I'm sorry, he started, but I cut him off. Don't. Just don't. I left before he could say more, before I could admit how much I still wanted him. Then came the gala, the 1-year anniversary of the night we met. I wasn't invited this time, too small a fish, but I went anyway. crashing in a borrowed suit, desperate to see him. The ballroom was a sea of champagne and power. And there he was, Julian, in a tuxedo that fit like a second skin, laughing with Michael at his side. Michael's hand rested on Julian's arm, casual but possessive, and I felt the air leave my lungs. I turned to leave, but Julian saw me. His face shifted guilt. Maybe love. I couldn't tell. He crossed the room, leaving Michael behind. Ezra, wait, he said, grabbing my wrist. This isn't what it looks like. But it was. I could see it in the way Michael watched us, in the way Julian's grip faltered. You're choosing him, I said, not a question. Julian's silence was answer enough. I left the gala, the city lights blurring through my tears. I didn't know then that this was only the start, that Michael's return would unravel everything Julian and I had built, that secrets would spill, and choices would break us. But standing there, alone in the rain, I knew one thing. Loving Julian Hart was the most beautiful, painful thing I'd ever done. The days after the gala felt like walking through fog. I'd wake up, check my phone, and find no calls, no texts, just the ghost of Julian's touch from that night. My tiny Brooklyn apartment, once a haven where we'd shared stolen mornings, now felt like a cage, every corner holding memories I couldn't escape. I tried to move on. I took on extra freelance gigs, sketching logos until my fingers cramped. But my mind kept drifting to Julian's face in that ballroom, torn between me and Michael. I hated how much I still loved him, how I could still hear his low laugh, feel the warmth of his hand in mine. I hated that I was waiting for him to choose me, even after he'd let me walk away. One night, desperate for distraction, I went to a dive bar in Williamsburg with my friend Lila, 29, a bartender with a knack for seeing through my bullshit. Ezra, you look like hell, she said, sliding a beer across the table. Spill. So I did. The whole messy story, Julian. Michael. The gala. The way my heart felt like it was being carved out. Lila listened, her dark eyes steady, then said, You're worth more than being someone's secret. You know that, right? I nodded, but I didn't believe it. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Julian, can we talk? My place. Tonight. My pulse raced, hope and dread tangling in my chest. I wanted to say no, to protect what was left of me, but I couldn't. I showed up at his sleek Manhattan penthouse, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that made my Brooklyn shoebox feel like a closet. Julian opened the door, unshaven, his dress shirt untucked. Ezra, he said, relief in his voice. He pulled me into a hug, and for a moment, I let myself melt into him, breathing in cedar and coffee. But then I saw Ida jacket slung over the couch. Not his. Too small. Too stylish. Michael's. Is he here? I asked, stepping back. Julian's face fell. No. He was earlier. We're working on the case together. I laughed. Bitter. Working. Right. Julian reached for me, but I dodged. Ezra, please. I'm trying to figure this out. Michael's part of my past, but Yuri my present. Then why does it feel like I'm the one being erased? I snapped. His eyes softened, and he stepped closer, voice low. You're not. I love you, Ezra. Michael's changed. He's not the man who left me. He's asking for a second chance, and I owe it to him to at least hear him out. You owe him, I said, incredulous. What about me? The one who's been here, hiding in the shadows for you. Julian flinched, but he didn't answer. I turned to leave, but he grabbed my arm. Don't go. Please. His voice broke, and I saw the man I loved, not the untouchable lawyer, but someone as lost as me. We talked for hours, sitting on his cold marble floor, wine glasses untouched. He told me about Michael's return, how he'd shown up at the courthouse, sober, apologizing for the past. Julian admitted he felt guilty, like he'd failed Michael by letting him spiral years ago. "But you," he said, cupping my face, "you make me feel alive in ways I never thought possible." I wanted to believe him. I kissed him, desperate to hold on to us. But the shadow of Michael lingered. As I left, he promised to figure things out soon. I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. The next day, I saw them together. I'd gone to the courthouse, hoping to catch Julian after his hearing. Instead, I found him and Michael outside, laughing, their shoulders brushing. It wasn't just professional. It was intimate, familiar, like they'd never been apart. I turned away before they saw me, my chest burning. I threw myself into work, but the pain followed. Lila dragged me to a queer art show in Bushwick, hoping to cheer me up. There, I met Sam, 30, a painter with kind eyes and a quiet confidence. He asked about my designs, and for the first time in weeks, I felt seen. We exchanged numbers, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was betraying Julian, even if he was betraying me. That night, Julian called. "I miss you," he said, voice raw. "I'm trying, Ezra. I swear." I wanted to scream, to demand he choose, but I just said, "I miss you too." We hung up, and I stared at Sam's number, torn between holding on and letting go. The case Julian was working on, a landmark fight for workplace protections, hit a turning point. Michael's articles were everywhere, praising Julian's brilliance. I read one, hating how proud I felt of him, how much I still cared. Then I saw a photo, Julian and Michael at a press conference, hands clasped, smiling like partners. My phone slipped from my hand. I didn't sleep that night. I kept seeing that photo, kept hearing Julian's promises. I knew I couldn't keep being his secret, but letting go felt like losing a part of myself. As dawn broke, I made a decision. I'd confront him, demand the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I stood outside Julian's office, the glass tower looming like a judgment. My hands shook as I texted him, "I'm here. We need to talk. Now." I'd spent the night replaying that photo of him and Michael, their hands locked, their smiles a public declaration I'd never been allowed. I was done waiting. Julian met me in the lobby, his face pale. "I ask you, Ezra, what's wrong?" he asked, as if he didn't know. I pulled out my phone, shoving the photo in his face. "This. Explain this." His eyes widened, then dropped. "It's not what you think," he started, but I cut him off. "Don't lie to me, Julian. Not anymore." We ended up in a quiet conference room, the city sprawling below us. Julian paced, his hands raking through his hair. It was a moment, Ezra. A stupid, staged moment for the cameras. Michael thought it'd help the case, show unity. I laughed, sharp and hollow. "Unity? You looked like you were in love." Julian stopped, his eyes locking on mine. "I'm not in love with him. I'm in love with you." "Then why am I still your secret?" I shouted, my voice echoing off the glass. "Why is he the one by your side in public, while I'm sneaking into your apartment at midnight?" Julian sank into a chair, head in his hands. "Because I'm scared," he admitted, voice barely audible. "Scared of what it means to be out, to have my life dissected. You know how this world works. Me career, my cases, they'd be overshadowed by who I love." I wanted to feel sorry for him, but anger burned hotter. "And what about me? Do you know what it's like to love someone who keeps you hidden? To watch you choose him, again and again?" Julian stood, reaching for me, but I stepped back. "I'm not choosing him," he said. "I'm trying to protect what we have." "Protect it?" I snapped. You're killing it. The words hung between us, heavy and final. Julian's face crumpled, and for the first time, I saw him as just a man, not the untouchable lawyer. Ezra, please, he whispered. Give me time. But I was done giving. I left the office, my heart a tangled mess. Outside, the city pulsed on, indifferent. I wandered to a diner, ordered coffee I didn't drink, and texted Sam. He met me an hour later, his calm presence a balm. Rough day? He asked, sliding into the booth. I nodded, spilling everything Julian. Michael, the photo, the fight. Sam listened, his hand resting near mine, not pushing. You deserve someone who chooses you. Ezra, he said softly. No hiding. His words hit hard, echoing Lila's. I wanted to believe I could move on, but Julian's face kept pulling me back. That night, I dreamed of him, of the bench in Washington Square Park, of the way he'd looked at me like I was his world. I woke up crying, hating myself for still caring. The next day, Julian's case made headlines again. A major win. Workplace protection strengthened. His name everywhere. Michael's articles called him a hero, and I couldn't help but feel proud, even as it hurt. I saw them on TV, standing together at a victory party, Michael's arm around Julian's shoulders. I turned it off, my chest tight. Lila dragged me to another art show, where Sam was exhibiting. His paintings bold, vibrant abstracts felt like a window into someone who lived openly, unashamed. We talked late into the night, and when he walked me home, he kissed my cheek, gentle but deliberate. I'm here, Ezra, he said. When you're ready. I smiled, but my heart wasn't in it. Julian texted me that night, I'm sorry. Can we meet tomorrow? I stared at the message, torn. I wanted to say no, to protect myself, but I couldn't. I agreed to meet at our spot in the park. When I arrived, he was there, alone, his face drawn. I messed up, he said, voice raw. I've been a coward, and I've hurt you. But I want to fix this. How? I asked, skeptical. He took a deep breath. I'm coming out. Publicly. Tomorrow. After the press conference. I want you there. Ezra. Not as a secret. My heart stopped. Was this real? Or another promise he'd break? I searched his eyes, seeing fear but also resolve. Okay, I said, barely a whisper. I'll be there. As I walked home, hope flickered, but so did doubt. Julian's world was bigger than mine, and Michael was still in it. I didn't know if I could trust him, or if I was walking into another heartbreak. But I knew I had to see it through, for better or worse. The press conference was in a sleek midtown hotel, all glass and polished wood, packed with reporters and flashing cameras. I stood at the back, my heart pounding, wearing a borrowed blazer that felt too tight. Julian was at the podium, commanding the room, his voice steady as he spoke about the case's impact. But I barely heard him. I was waiting for what came next, for the moment he'd promised. Michael was there, too, standing off to the side, his notepad in hand, eyes fixed on Julian. I hated how confident he looked, how easily he fit into this world. When Julian finished his speech, the room erupted in applause. He glanced at me, a flicker of a smile, and my breath caught. Then he stepped back to the mic. There's something else I need to say, Julian began, his voice quieter now, almost vulnerable. The room stilled. For too long, I've hidden a part of myself, out of fear. But I'm done hiding. I'm gay, and I'm in love with someone who's shown me what it means to be brave. My heart soared, then sank as I saw Michael's face tighten. Julian's eyes found mine. Ezra, this is for you. The room exploded with murmurs, cameras flashing. I froze, torn between pride and panic. Julian stepped off the stage, weaving through the crowd toward me. He took my hand, and for the first time, we stood together in public. No secrets. He kissed my forehead, soft and deliberate, and the world seemed to fade. But then Michael was there, his face a mask of calm that didn't reach his eyes. "Congratulations," he said to Julian, voice clipped. "Didn't know you had it in you." He glanced at me, a quick, sharp look that felt like a warning, then walked away. Julian squeezed my hand. "Ignore him," he whispered. "This is about us." We left the hotel, stepping into the chaos of Manhattan. Reporters shouted questions, but Julian ignored them, pulling me into a cab. Inside, he turned to me, his face raw. "I meant it. Ezra. I'm all in." I wanted to believe him, but Michael's shadow lingered. "What about him?" I asked. Julian sighed. "He's my past. You're my future." The next few days were a whirlwind. Julian's coming out was everywhere: news articles, talk shows, social media. Some praised his courage. Others tore him apart, questioning his motives, his timing. I stayed out of the spotlight, but Julian didn't. He was defiant, unapologetic, and every night, he came home to me, not his penthouse, but my cramped apartment, where we'd cook cheap pasta and laugh like nothing else mattered. But Michael wasn't gone. He called Julian late one night, and I overheard enough to know he wasn't giving up. "You can't just erase 10 years, Michael said, his voice crackling through the phone. Julian hung up, but his face was troubled. "He's struggling," Julian admitted. "He thought we could try again." I felt sick. "And what did you say?" I asked. Julian pulled me close. "I told him it's over. For good." I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. The next day, I met Sam for coffee, needing perspective. He listened as I poured out my fears: Julian's past, Michael's persistence, the pressure of Julian's public life. "Ezra," Sam said, his voice gentle, "you're enough. If he doesn't see that, he's not worth it." His words stayed with me, a quiet strength I clung to. Then came the article. Michael published a piece, not about the case, but about Julian. It was subtle but vicious, hinting at Julian's sudden coming out as a publicity stunt, questioning his authenticity. It didn't name me, but it didn't have to. The implication was clear: I was the convenient prop. I read it at work, my hand shaking, and called Julian. "Did you see it?" I asked. He was furious. "I'll handle it," he said, but I heard the strain in his voice. That night, Julian showed up at my apartment, his face drawn. I confronted Michael. He said, "He's hurt. Ezra." He lashed out because he's losing me. I wanted to scream that Michael didn't get to be the victim, but I just nodded. Julian pulled me into his arms, promising it would be okay, but I felt the cracks widening. As we lay in bed, the city humming outside, I wondered how long we could hold on. Julian was finally mine, out in the open, but Michael's shadow was still there, and I didn't know if love was enough to keep us together. The fallout from Michael's article hit like a storm. Social media buzzed with speculation, some calling Julian a fraud, others defending him. I stayed offline, but the whispers followed Mecca workers' glances, strangers' stares when I was out with Julian. He tried to shield me, turning down interviews, keeping us low-key, but the weight of his world was crushing. One night, we were at a quiet diner, tucked in a corner booth, when a reporter approached. "Mr. Hart, is this your partner?" she asked, her phone already recording. Julian's jaw tightened, but he smiled, cool and professional. "This is Ezra, and we'd like some privacy." She backed off, but the intrusion lingered, a reminder that our love was now public property. At home, Julian was quieter, his usual confidence frayed. I didn't expect it to be this hard, he admitted, staring at the ceiling. I took his hand. We'll get through it, I said, but I wasn't sure I believed it. Michael's article had planted seeds of doubt, not just in the public, but in me. Was I enough for Julian? Or was I just the safe choice after Michael's chaos? Lila noticed my spiral. Over beers at her bar. She didn't sugarcoat it. Ezra, you're drowning in his drama. You need to decide what you can live with. I knew she was right, but letting go felt impossible. Julian was trying showing up, being open, but Michael's presence was a ghost we couldn't exorcise. Then Michael called me. I was at my studio, sketching, when an unknown number flashed. Ezra, it's Michael, he said, his voice smooth, controlled. We need to talk. I should have hung up, but curiosity won. We met at a coffee shop in Chelsea, neutral ground. He was as charismatic as I'd feared, tall, sharp-eyed, with a smile that could disarm or destroy. I'm not here to fight, he said, leaning back. I just want you to know the truth. Julian's using you to prove a point. He's not over me. My stomach twisted, but I kept my face blank. Why should I believe you? I asked. Michael leaned forward, eyes intense. Because I know him. 10 years. Ezra. You don't walk away from that. He'll come back to me, and you'll be left with nothing. I left the coffee shop shaken, his words echoing. I didn't tell Julian about the meeting, but it changed something in me. I started noticing things: Julian's late nights, working, the way he'd check his phone and frown. Was it Michael? I hated myself for doubting, but I couldn't stop. Sam became my anchor. We hung out more. Not dating. Just talking art. Life. Anything but Julian. One evening, at his studio, he showed me a painting inspired by our talks, vibrant swirls of blue and gold. Chaotic but hopeful. It's you, he said, smiling. Messy, but beautiful. I laughed. The first real laugh in weeks. And for a moment, I felt free. But Julian noticed my distance. One night, he showed up at my apartment, eyes wild. What's going on? Ezra. You're pulling away. I wanted to lie, to protect him. But the truth spilled out: Michael's meeting. My doubts. The fear that I was losing myself. Julian's face fell. You met with him. Why didn't you tell me? I snapped back. Because I didn't want to hear you defend him again. We fought. Loud and raw. The kind of fight that strips you bare. Julian swore Michael meant nothing. That he'd cut contact. But I saw the guilt in his eyes. I can't keep doing this, I said, my voice breaking. I love you, but I'm breaking. Julian sank onto the couch, head in his hands. I don't want to lose you, he whispered. Then prove it, I said, and walked out. I spent the night at Lila's, staring at the ceiling, torn between love and survival. The next morning, Julian texted, I'm done with Michael. Completely. Meet me tonight. I wanted to believe him, but trust was fragile now. I agreed, but I made a promise to myself: if he couldn't choose me fully, I'd walk away for good. That evening, at our park bench, Julian looked broken but determined. I told Michael it's over. He said, no more contact. No more collaboration. I choose you. Ezra. He pulled out a key: his penthouse. Move in with me. Let's build something real. My heart raced, but doubt lingered. Was this enough? Could I trust him? As I stood there, the city alive around us, I knew this was the moment that would define us. Love was a risk, but so was letting go. I took a deep breath, ready to decide. I took the key from Julian, its weight heavy in my palm, a promise and a gamble. Okay, I said, voice trembling. Let's try? His face lit up, and he pulled me into a kiss, fierce and desperate. like he was anchoring himself to me. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope, fragile but real. Moving in with Julian was surreal. His penthouse was all sharp lines and luxury, a far cry from my cluttered Brooklyn walk-up. I brought only a duffel bag and my sketchbooks, feeling like an intruder in his world. But Julian made space for me literally, clearing a shelf for my art supplies, and figuratively, introducing me to his colleagues as his partner. Each step felt like a victory, but Michael's shadow still lingered in my mind. We fell into a rhythm, cooking dinners, watching old movies, stealing moments between his cases and my deadlines. Julian was different now, more open, less guarded. He'd hold my hand in public, unbothered by stares, and it felt like we were finally building something solid. But I couldn't shake the fear that it was too good to last. One evening, while Julian was at a late meeting, I found a letter tucked in a drawer. It was from Michael, dated a week after Julian's coming out. "You'll regret this, Julian. You can't erase me." The words burned, not just for what they said, but because Julian had kept it. Why? I confronted him when he got home, holding the letter like evidence. "Why didn't you throw this away?" I asked, voice tight. Julian's face fell. "I forgot it was there," he said, reaching for me. "It means nothing, Ezra." But it didn't feel like nothing. I pushed him away, the old doubts roaring back. "You swore he was out of your life," I said. "Then why is his letter in your drawer?" Julian sighed, sitting heavily. "Because I'm human, Ezra. I kept it to remind myself why I chose you. Michael's my past, but he's still a ghost I have to face." His honesty disarmed me, but it didn't erase the hurt. We talked late into the night, laying bare our fears. Julian admitted Michael had been texting him. Small things, case updates. Apologies, but he'd ignored them. "I should have told you," he said. "I'm sorry." I nodded, but trust was a tightrope, and I was wobbling. The next day, I met Sam for lunch. I hadn't seen him since moving in with Julian, and his easy smile was a comfort. I told him about the letter, the fight, my doubts. "Ezra," he said, leaning forward, "you're fighting for someone who might not be fighting as hard for you. You deserve better." His words stung, but they were true. I thanked him, promising to stay in touch, but I knew I was clinging to Julian, even if it hurt. Then came the bombshell. Michael published another article, this one a personal essay. It detailed his and Julian's history, 10 years of love, loss, and regret, painting Julian as the one who'd abandoned him. It didn't mention me, but it didn't need to. The world saw Julian as Michael's, and the comments online were brutal, accusing Julian of betrayal, of using me to rewrite his story. Julian was livid, pacing his office when I found him. "He had no right," he said, slamming his phone down. "This ends now." He called his lawyer, threatening a defamation suit, but I saw the toll it took. His hands shook, his eyes haunted. I held him, whispering, "We'll get through this." But I wasn't sure anymore. That night, Michael showed up at the penthouse. I opened the door, expecting a delivery, and there he was, eyes red, voice unsteady. "I need to see Julian," he said. I blocked the door. "He's done with you. Leave." Michael laughed, bitter. "You think you've won. He'll never love you like he loved me." Julian appeared behind me, his face a storm. "Get out, Michael," he said, voice low and final. Michael left, but his words lingered like poison. Julian and I sat in silence, the city glittering outside. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I should have cut him off completely." I nodded, but my heart was heavy. "I need to know you're all in, Julian," I said. "No more ghosts." He took my hands, eyes fierce. "I am. I swear." But as we went to bed, I couldn't sleep. Michael's words. The letter. The articles, they were cracks in our foundation. I loved Julian. But love wasn't enough if trust was gone. I had to decide, stay and fight, or walk away and save myself. The weeks that followed were a fragile piece. Julian blocked Michael's number, deleted his emails, and focused on us. We went on dates, quiet dinners, walks in Central Park, rebuilding what had cracked. But Michael's essay had left scars, not just on Julian's reputation, but on my heart. I smiled for him, but inside, I was wrestling with trust. One morning, Julian got a call from his firm. A new case, high profile, defending a queer couple denied housing. He was energized, the old fire back in his eyes. This is why I do this, Ezra, he said, kissing me before rushing out. I was proud, but the long hours returned. And with them, my doubts. Was I enough to anchor him in this storm? Lila noticed my quietness at our weekly drinks. You're still carrying him, she said, blunt as ever. What about you, Ezra? What do you want? I didn't have an answer. I loved Julian, but I was tired of fighting ghosts. Tired of being the one who always bent. She hugged me. Fierce. You're stronger than you think. Sam reached out, too, inviting me to his next exhibit. I went, needing a break from Julian's world. The gallery was alive with color. Sam's paintings a vivid contrast to my gray thoughts. He introduced me to his friends. All artists. All unapologetically themselves. I felt a spark of who I used to be, Ezra. The dreamer. Not just Julian's partner. Sam didn't push, but his quiet support was a lifeline. Then came the letter. Not from Michael, but from Julian's mother, Eleanor, 65, a retired judge who'd never warmed to me. It arrived at the penthouse, addressed to Julian, but left open. You're throwing away your legacy for a fling, she wrote. Michael was your equal. This boy is not. I read it, my hand shaking. And when Julian came home, I thrust it at him. Is this what you think, too? I asked, voice breaking. Julian's face darkened. No. She's wrong. Ezra. You're not a fling. He tore the letter up, but the words lingered. She doesn't know you, he said, pulling me close. She doesn't know us. But I wondered if she saw something I didn't. Julian's world, where I'd always be the outsider. The housing case consumed Julian, but he made time for me, cooking breakfast, leaving notes on my sketchbooks. One night, he took me to the rooftop, the city sparkling below. I want a future with you, he said, his voice steady. Marriage, kids, all of it. My heart swelled, but fear crept in. Could I build a life with someone whose past kept haunting us? Then Michael resurfaced. Not in person, but through a mutual friend. Claire, 35, a lawyer at Julian's firm. She invited us to dinner. Casual, but mentioned Michael would be there. He's leaving New York, she said. He wants closure. Julian looked at me, waiting for my lead. I nodded, against my better judgment. Maybe closure would end this. The dinner was tense. A small restaurant in Soho. Candles flickering. Michael was subdued, his charm muted. I'm sorry, he said to Julian. Then me. I was selfish. I wish you both the best. His eyes held mine, and I saw regret, but also resignation. Julian squeezed my hand under the table, a silent promise. After, we walked home, the air crisp. It's really over, Julian said, relief in his voice. I wanted to believe it, but Michael's presence had stirred something in minute jealousy. But clarity. I loved Julian, but I'd lost myself in his world. I needed to find Ezra again. The next day, I told Julian I needed space, not a breakup, but time to think. His face fell, but he nodded. I'll wait, he said, kissing me softly. I moved back to my apartment. My sketchbook's my only company. I drew, poured my heart onto paper, and slowly, I started to feel whole. Sam called, checking in. "You're finding your way," he said, and I smiled, realizing he was right. I wasn't ready to let Julian go, but I was ready to choose myself, too. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, I felt like I could face it. Alone in my apartment, I rediscovered pieces of myself I'd buried. My sketchbooks filled with new designs, bold, unapologetic, like the person I wanted to be. Julian texted daily. "Small things, miss you. Working on the case. Thinking of you." I replied, but kept my distance, needing to know who I was without him. Lila and Sam became my anchors. Lila pushed me to take on a big projected mural for a community center, saying it was time I left my mark. Sam offered his studio, and we worked side by side, his quiet encouragement grounding me. I wasn't ready for more with him, but his friendship gave me strength. Julian respected my space, but after 2 weeks, he asked to meet. I chose a coffee shop, neutral ground. He looked tired but hopeful, his suit rumpled. "I've been thinking," he said, hands wrapped around his mug. "I've put you through hell, Ezra, and I'm sorry. I want to earn your trust, not just expect it." His words hit deep, and I saw the man I loved, flawed but trying. I told him about the mural, my art, my need to stand on my own. He listened. I soft. "I'm proud of you," he said. "I want to be part of your world, not take it over." We didn't make promises, but we agreed to take it slow, to rebuild. The mural consumed me, a vibrant tribute to Brooklyn's queer community. Julian showed up at the unveiling, standing quietly in the crowd. When I caught his eye, he smiled, not the lawyer's charm, but something real. Afterward, he helped me clean paintbrushes, and we talked not about Michael or the past, but about dreams, art, the future. It felt like a new beginning. Months passed, and we grew stronger. Julian took on pro bono cases, fighting for kids like I'd once been dreamers with no one in their corner. I finished the mural, landed a gallery show, and started teaching art classes. We moved in together again, this time in a new apartment, a shared space that felt like ours. One night, under the stars on our tiny balcony, Julian proposed. No grand gesture, just a simple ring and a question: "Will you build a life with me?" I said yes, tears falling, not because it was perfect, but because it was real. We'd fought for this, through pain and doubt, and come out stronger. Michael faded into memory. I heard he'd moved to London, chasing a new story. I didn't care. He was no longer our ghost. Julian and I weren't just a lawyer and an artist, or a secret and a scandal. We were two people choosing each other, every day, flaws and all. The wedding was small, in a Brooklyn garden, Lila and Sam by our side. As we exchanged vows, I thought of the boy who'd run through the rain to meet Julian, the man who'd almost lost himself, and the person I'd become stronger, braver, whole. Julian's hand in mine was a promise, not just of love, but of trust, earned through fire. Looking back, I see the beauty in our brokenness. Loving Julian taught me that love isn't a fairy tale. It's a choice, messy and human. Michael's return shattered us, but it also forced us to rebuild, not just together, but as ourselves. I was no longer the secret lover, or the shadow of an ex. I was Ezra, loved and seen, and that was enough.